All right, back tonight on In Focus. African countries will require huge amounts of money for investment in health, safety and security, energy security and agriculture infrastructure to lift millions of people out of poverty. These are the views of delegates at the Economic Development Indaba in Ivory Coast, where African heads of state, investors and funders are meeting. They hope to rally the world's wealthiest nations to fund interest-free loans for Africa. Business editor Xolani Mbanjwa is in Abidjan and filed this report.
The Economic Development Assembly here in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire, is truly underway with heads of government, business leaders, civil society and development finance institutions trying to trace a way to rally the world's wealthiest nations to fund the World Bank International Development Association Fund that has zero interest loans for African countries, poor African countries, in order to fund development on the continent. One of the biggest questions is whether there's appetite to actually fund African countries, but there is no doubt that there is enough to do. There are enough projects on the African continent. Emile Dutoit is the MD of Fundraising and Liabilities Management at Harith Africa, and he joins me now. Emile, thank you very much for your time. That's the big question. Is there appetite when it comes to funding African projects? Because from what we've heard from the delegates, including the Harith chairperson, there isn't a shortage of development projects across the continent.
Good evening, Xolani. Yes, you're correct. I don't think there is a shortage. Ultimately, there is a lot of interest to construct the projects and to invest in the projects. But what it comes down to is, and there's also a real good pipeline of projects to invest in, it's really finding the right partners and the capital sources to fund it. And I think one of the things that's been raised at the conference is really the cost of funding and how do we bring that down in terms of the cost of debt, etc. And obviously there the World Bank and IDA, etc. plays a very big role. But I think also what we are trying to show is that the private sector as a partner is absolutely critical in bringing and delivering infrastructure to the African continent. And what we've seen in our experience is when you find good projects and you can structure it properly, that the capital is actually also there. We can find private sector as well as on the data and equity side, as well as DFI funding for projects. And you just need to structure it well and know what you're doing. And you know, the fallacy that African projects are more risky than other projects, we don't believe is really true. It's really coming out in a demonstration effect. You know, we are demonstrating through successful projects, and we've been doing it for 15 years now, that you can actually invest, build infrastructure, and do it successfully. You know, we've demonstrated here in Abidjan itself, where we're standing now in 2012 at a time when it was really difficult to do any private sector projects. We delivered the HKB bridge, one of the biggest private sector projects in Abidjan at the time. And it's been a very successful project for us. And I've got numerous other examples of countries in Africa where people would say it's too risky to invest. And those are the countries where we have some of our best projects. And we believe through continuously demonstrating and proving these case studies and actually doing the successful investments, more investors will follow, and that cost of capital and that risk will start coming down.
Emile, thank you very much for your time. As you heard there is a lot of appetite for development in infrastructure finance in Africa. It is now a time for the world's wealthiest nations to replenish that IDA at the World Bank to enable the world's poorest countries, particularly on the African continent, to access that zero interest rate funding for Africa's future. For Newzroom Afrika on Channel 405, I'm Xolani Mbanjwa in Abidjan, Côte d'Ivoire.